Happy Thursday. It is Therapy Thursday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Dr. Triphi. Every Thursday, I try to come on and I try to talk about different topics that I hope keep your interest. Tonight, I'm talking about love. Tonight, I'm talking about love and addiction. I'm talking about love addiction. All right, so I like to start off by saying that I am a licensed psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm from. My home is Dominica. Where is Dominica? Dominica is not to be confused with the Dominican Republic. We love them, but they're a completely different country. We are further south. Dominican Republic is attached to Haiti, and so they're close to Puerto Rico and Jamaica. And we are further south. We're closer to Barbados. Today, I found myself telling someone that I'm from a little island that's close to where Rihanna's from. And they were like, "Oh, I know where that is. I know where that is." I was like, "Mm-hmm." Anyway, so in Dominica this week is a week that's leading up to Carnival. Good times, good times. Yeah. But next week for all of us, or for most of us, next week is Valentine's Day. And somebody's going to be looking for a gift, and somebody's going to be looking to be reminded that they're special and that they're loved. And a lot of people are going to be hurt that they did not get what they wanted for Valentine's Day. Mm. But anyway, I wanted to talk about love and love addiction. I call it bad love. I call it pathological love. Some places in the literature, you hear words like affective dependence or emotional dependence, destructive love, or desperate love. So, I mean, these days, if you're listening to social media, you'll hear almost everybody and their uncle with a microphone talking about love and love, in the modern sense. And I don't know that love is getting great reviews these days. Mm. But the truth is, most of us want love. Most of us want to love and we want to be loved. Yeah. We're taught, if you grew up Christian and you read the Bible says love is patient, love is kind, love covers wrong, all of the sweet stuff. It says that out of all the virtues, love is the greatest of them all. But I don't know that our life experiences always match up to that kind of definition of love. Yeah. When you're talking about modern day love, there is the idea of passport bros. Do you know what's a passport bro? Last month in January, apparently about 8 young men got seriously hurt. Some were unalived in South America. These were young men who had left their homes in the US and gone looking for love. They were on a mission for love. Yeah, they were on a quest for love that they say they cannot find in the US in the way that they want. You're talking about women, there's a bit of a movement that's called the divest movement. Now, the divest movement kind of started off with Black women primarily saying, we've suffered enough. We are not going to be ride or die. If things hurt, we're going to say it hurts. And so it's not as if it started off as if it was an anti love or anti relationship movement. But if you're thinking about things that hurt you, sometimes love hurts. So I think that movement has been getting a little bit of maybe pressure that they are anti love, anti relationship. But it just goes to show you that these days people are really paying attention to the quality of the relationships that they're creating. And so, what do you think is healthy love? What is healthy love? What should love look like? Like I said, the Bible talks about love as being patient and kind. But what does mature love in a relationship look like? I mean, tell me if you don't know somebody who has given up on love because they got hurt in the past and they're wounded, they do not want to do it anymore. There are a lot of us who have a lot of anxiety about committing, hmm, creating long term relationships. There are a lot of people, yeah, perhaps because of what they saw in their families, perhaps because of what they themselves experienced. Yeah. But the funny thing is, like I say, many people both want to be intimate, but they are afraid of what might happen as a result. All right. So I got notes tonight, y'all. I have notes tonight. I have notes tonight. And we're talking about it. Okay, Aisa, we are talking about it. So the term love addiction itself has a little bit of controversy attached to it because it is not in the DSM. What is the DSM? The DSM is the American Psychiatric Association. It's called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, mental health disorders. So this is the Bible, so to speak, of people in the mental health profession. And in that DSM are listed all of the classifications and descriptions and criteria for mental health disorders. So you will not find love addiction in the DSM as an official clinical diagnosis, but there have been books written on love addiction, there's research on love addiction. I want to offer you a couple books tonight. I like to leave you with books. One book is by Brenda Schaefer, and it's called Is It Love or Is It Addiction? I'm going to give you the name of Steve Sussman. Steve Sussman worked, and he might still be working, I'm not sure, but in 2010, he wrote a piece of research on love addiction. And at the time, he worked at the University of Southern California. In the Journal of Sexual Addiction and Compulsivity, he wrote about what love addiction looks like. All right, y'all. So, you ready? I'm going to start talking about it, and I want you to listen to see if you perhaps recognize yourself, because we're talking about ourselves tonight. So he suggests, that is Sussman suggests that love addiction perhaps manifests itself by the time we're adolescent. So it's not as if, as an adult, you suddenly start loving in that kind of way, with that kind of style. It is similar to substance use disorders. So, in the same way that we get addicted to alcohol and opiates and prescription medication, he suggests we get addicted as well to love and the idea of love. And if you want to get an idea of about how many people might have the experience of love addiction, out of 100, he says about 5 to 10%. But as I read through the literature, some people put it up to 26%. What does that mean? That means that if you had 100 people sitting in a room, perhaps 5 to about 26 of them might be vulnerable to loving in that kind of way, with that kind of style and set of behaviors that I'll describe a little later. So Sussman says that, romantic love, the kind of love, you meet somebody, you fall in love, that suggests deep connection in a relationship. It includes highly intense feelings for somebody else. There's physical and emotional intimacy. And he also suggests, and that was something I found interesting, that love, romantic love, needs to be continually reanimated. What does that mean? You got to keep lighting the fire, you have to keep stoking the fire, essentially. Okay? Mature love. We can love, he says, in a mature way or in an immature way. Mature love includes needing and depending and relying on each other. It also includes giving to each other and doing for each other. There is romance, there is physical intimacy, there is companionship, and the environment permits for both people to grow and flourish. The environment you create allows for both people to grow and flourish. Immature love, on the other hand, which leads to addictive love, creates, on the other hand, an atmosphere that can even be life threatening. And we've seen this. There are many people who have lost their lives in relationships. So, immature romantic love creates a potentially life threatening, very maladaptive social environment that's highly toxic to both people. And it's about power and the misuse of power in the relationship. It's about possession. You belong to me, and therefore you must do what I want you to do, how I want you to do it. It's about lack of protection for the other person, and also self protection, where one person or both people really guard themselves and distance themselves from the other person. It includes obsessions. What's an obsession? An obsession is a thought that just keeps rolling around in your head and you almost cannot seem to get rid of it. So you might have one person in the couple overly hyper vigilant about their partner cheating on them to the point of obsession, to the point where the other person cannot leave the house without being called 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, to the point where one person comes in and their schedule might have been 30 minutes off, and it causes a huge painful stir because the other one says, "You're late. Where did you go? What happened? I think you went there. I think this happened." Yeah. It also includes needing to cling to a partner. There's a lot of uncertainty, as in somebody might feel as if the relationship might end at any time. So just kind of walking on eggshells. And there's also a perception that love is blind, in the sense that I see the problem, but I'm too scared to approach it, to talk about it with my mate. And so I pretend I don't see it, I ignore it. I act as if I cannot help it. I act as if this is just how I am. And so I just lose my temper like that. Yeah. Or I just allow my mate to do it and pretend it's not happening, so that one person or both people get to a point where they feel as if they have no power to change the course or the environment in the relationship. So that creates a really toxic, nasty environment to be living in, day out. So it permeates your daily life. You have people who leave home and they cannot stop thinking about their mate all day. Not in the sense of, when you just, I'm just so in love with my person, but in an anxious state where they're worrying about all of these things. So it takes over their daily life, and it starts to involve repeated out of control behaviors. For example, calling a person 20 times because they didn't pick up, hmm? and results in negative life consequences. Now, the thing about addiction is, y'all, if you think about it, all of us, all of us probably have some form of addiction to a thing, to a substance, to an activity, to a behavior. Yeah. Some of us get addicted to sugar, to exercising, to work. Some people even get addicted to being sick because they get what's called secondary gain from that. What is secondary gain? Secondary gain is if I realize that when I get sick, I get affection and I get attention, some people become sick to receive that. Yes? So what does that mean in a relationship where you're dealing with immature love, a style of love or an ability to love that is immature? That means that instead of creating that healthy environment where there's mutual growth, yeah, or you create a situation where people's self-esteem can grow, instead you create a system where there's obsessive concern about the other person's behavior, what they're doing, what they're not doing. There's possessive thoughts, there's possessive behaviors that can go into the physical realm. And like I said, we have many people lose their lives because of that. And the emotional instability and uncertainty causes illness. So, a love addict, so somebody in that state, feels very alone, very desperate. There are some people who will continue to try to make a relationship work even after it's ended. So you have people who go to stalking behaviors. Yeah, you know what is stalking? Where they they follow you, they follow you. Okay, and that becomes very, very frightening. The National Institute of Health describes love addiction as a preoccupation with the feeling of being in love. A preoccupation with the feeling of being in love that might lead somebody to seek love in a way that's not good for them. So if seeking love because I'm so in love with the idea of being in love, or if I'm so in love or fixated on one particular person, if the relationship becomes uncomfortable or unsafe, that person will persist in the relationship, regardless of the painful consequences or the negative consequences. Okay? So, an addiction, for something to be an addiction, it's got to be something that is compulsive. That means you have an irresistible urge to do it. Yeah? Or to be involved with it. You have cravings for it. And those cravings become chronic, meaning they persist. Yeah. It affects your body. Some people develop headaches. It affects your psychological experience, so your thoughts. People ruminate on the other person. That's all they're thinking about at work. So you can't even do your job at work because you're worried about where your mate is and what your mate is doing. Yeah. That behavior creates a habit or habits that are not good for you, and they have harmful consequences. So, for it to be an addiction, there must be some sort of negative consequence. Okay. So, what's a potential negative consequence of being in a relationship where I am constantly worried if I call and my person doesn't call me back within 5 minutes? Yeah. You might escalate to becoming verbally abusive. Yeah. Verbal abuse can sometimes escalate into physical abuse. Okay. So, as I was saying earlier, I mean, I think most of us have some addictive tendencies. Mm. And again, for me, it might be sugar. For you, it might be you work too much, might be a workaholic. Yeah. We already know that some people become addicted to alcohol, to drugs, and there are great programs for that. But have you ever heard of a program for love addiction? There actually are such programs. Okay. There actually are such programs. And so, why is this an important topic to me? Again, I think it's crucial to figure out if that's my style of being in a relationship, because love can hurt. If that's the way I'm loving, or I'm allowing somebody to love me, I might be risking my life. I might be risking my life. I mean, on account of love, how many people, when they've tried to leave a relationship, say you have a man who tries to leave a relationship, and all of a sudden he gets accused of some kind of assault, or he is no longer able to have visitation with his child, or somebody who tries to leave and they get threatened, or their family gets threatened, or they actually get hurt, fatally hurt. So, this is important to understand what that is about. What is it about us that 26% perhaps of us are vulnerable to loving in that kind of way? Again, love is a beautiful thing. Love is a beautiful thing. But when we don't do it well, it can be a perilous adventure. Ask the many men who have lost their houses and their businesses after a divorce because they cheated. Hmm? So, healthy love, of course, feels blissful. I think for many people, marriage is still the ideal for many, many people. All of us want somebody to love for the most part. Yeah. There are some people who are like, I don't want you to touch me. I don't want to be around people. But for the most part, most of us want to be loved and we want to love. And so, what do we do if you are the person that I just described who's loving somebody else in that way? What do you do? Hmm? How do you face love addiction if that's where you are? If you're the person who you've been hurt over and over again, but you continue in the relationship as if it's okay. Well, here's another book. Mm. This book is by Pia Melody, Pia Melody with two L's. And the name of the book is called Facing Love Addiction. What you want to remember is, even if you didn't see it growing up, even if you don't have a model, and I think a lot of us also get caught because the models we do see are on TV. It's kind of fantasy based. It's kind of the prince comes on a big white horse or whatever, and they take us away, or we read romance novels and we think, so we have a you have a kind of idea of what a relationship should look like, and then you start playing it out, and it's not working. Well, Pia Melody suggests that a healthy relationship should look like this. And I think we know this, but when we get into relationships, a lot of us, we either forget, or I'll tell you what happens. Many of our unconscious, unhealed wounds show up and they get in the way. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So, a healthy relationship should look like respectful communication. Communication is the bridge that's going to take us through where we disagree, where things are not working. Res- Communication that doesn't debase the other person, that doesn't insult, that doesn't invalidate or negate what people are saying. The ability to respect that you have your thoughts and I have my thoughts, but I care about you and I love you anyway. Yeah. So we'll find some way to make this thing move forward versus break down. It's about valuing each other's time and valuing the other person's opinions. Again, even if I disagree, it's about protecting our privacy, the unit's privacy. So it's about loyalty. It's about not using the other person as the butt of your jokes. We can laugh about other things. We don't have to laugh at each other. You know, it's about not using your person as your hired help, like your maid. If you want a maid, just pay for a maid. Like, isn't it possible? Like, if you want a maid, pay for a maid and marry a partner. It's about not misusing and abusing our mates and using them as ATM machines. In Dominica, there's a word for it. In Dominica, they say break the hand. So healthy love is not about breaking a man's hand. Healthy love is about giving time and sharing your time. And I think it's also about not losing yourself in the other person, allowing the other person to be themselves and you to maintain your identity. So what a lot of us do in what is actually unhealthy love is we enmesh. It's called enmeshment. You know this mesh is like the thing that's in a strainer, like a sieve mesh, or in wounds if you work in the hospital. Um, it's all like this. So it's like we become, I think it, I don't know myself anymore. And I want you to be who I want you to be. See, because we're together now. So you don't exist anymore. And there are some people who will argue with you that, yeah, we have, but what happens is you lose yourself. Hmm? So what Pia Melody says is possibly the most significant characteristic of love addiction is that you assign too much time and value to another human being. And that focus is almost entirely on the other person. Your focus becomes almost entirely on the other person. Yet, again, neglecting yourself. And so, a lot of us, we do that in relationships because it's actually easier for us to focus on the other person in the relationship than to focus on ourselves, than to grow, than to look for all areas where we need to do better or become better. So we become very focused on what the other person needs to do better. So it's a compulsive need of that particular relationship. Yeah. And often it's in spite of bad circumstances, in spite of very painful events. Some people go as far as where they lose interest in the things they used to find valuable. Some people lose interest in their friends, in their family, in their hobbies. They used to work out every week, 2, 3 days a week. They stop working out and they're completely focused on the other person. Some people stop again being able to concentrate on their work, on their life. Some people have to let go of school. Yeah. There's negative moods and negative affect. Negative affect is how you look. Negative moods because they do a love hate kind of dynamic where I love you, I love you, I love you when you're doing what I like, what I want you to do. But I hate you, I hate you, I hate you because you didn't pick up the phone when I wanted you to pick up the phone. So you must not love me anymore. So I hate you. So very sharp mood swings where the person is either a god or the worst person in the world. So when you find yourself swinging so quickly for things like where the person didn't break a law, it wasn't illegal, it wasn't immoral, it wasn't unethical for them to not pick up the phone, right away. But for your emotions to crash like that is very important. You got to look at that. Yeah. And you have people with a strong urge to see their partner as essentially their partner is their medicine. Yeah. And I think in relationships, we can get so close. I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but I think it becomes wrong if it hurts you. Yeah. It becomes wrong if it hurts you or if it hurts the other person. So, a lot of other studies found that love addiction, when they talk to people and they ask them questions, love addiction shares numerous characteristics and aspects and features that are similar to substance use, substance addictions. Okay? So again, it's not in the DSM as a clinical diagnosis, but it is very present. It is very present, and it causes a lot of harm. It causes a lot of harm. So why do we form these love addictions? Yeah, how do we get that way? And Sussman says that again, by the time we become adolescents, we're already kind of cooked. Like, like we baked already, we set. And if you're going to be that kind of person in your love style, you're going to be that kind of person in your love style. So one popular theory is that people who become addicted to love have a fantasy of being rescued. That again, those movies and those little fairy tales that we grow up listening to and reading. Yeah. Or there are some people who develop an insecure style of attachment. How does that happen? We become, when you have a baby, the first like 18 months or so of a baby's life, typically you have parents who, when the baby cries, the parent goes and holds the baby, right? And they soothe the baby. But some of us, we were born in cultures where the grandmother used to say, do not hold the baby if the baby is crying. They will get what? Spoiled. Hmm? What a baby needs is the constant reassurance that when I scream, when my stomach is hurting me, when I'm hungry, when I'm wet, and I cry, my needs are going to be met. Yeah. And so healthy parents, they do that with their children. Yeah. And the child needs to have experienced that in a safe, predictable way for at least the first 18 months. So that when it screams and it looks for mommy and daddy are there and coming to soothe them. Yeah. But again, like I said, many of us do not have that experience because either our parents were too busy, or they were working, or we were in a daycare and maybe the daycare providers were not that attuned to the kids, or there are lots of reasons. Yeah. But I do think people who grow up in the Caribbean, well, I'll speak for Dominica, I've heard it like, I heard it all my life. Don't hold the baby when they're crying like that. Put the baby down, because the baby will be spoiled if every time you hear the baby cry, you go attend to the baby. Well, what does that do? That creates a kind of anxiety in a baby. And who is a baby? You grew up. If nothing was done to intervene, yeah, to reset that, you have that kind of thing. Battement che in love. Battement che, Creole, yeah, nervousness, anxiety, when it comes to attaching in a safe and healthy way with somebody else. Okay? So that is a second reason that some of us develop love addictions. Because now, when you get into the relationship, you're not sure. I want to attach because I love this person. I really like this person. But as I get closer to them, the anxiety that is unconscious to me as an adult, that was set in place as a child, it starts to get triggered and it shows up. And what some people do is they pull out. So they come in hard and they get close to the love and the softness and the now I can be vulnerable and safe. And then that they start to feel that, and that is so uncomfortable. They bail out, they distance themselves. Yeah. So what if you are one? What if you have two, and one of them is that has that style where, hey, if this thing feels too close, I'm bailing. This is too much for me. It feels overwhelming. Or you have another person now who they really want to get close. So you have one really wanting to get close, and another one who might have started in the beginning wanted to get close, but when they do get close, that anxiety shows up, and now they have work to do. Now they're working until 10 o'clock at night. the other one cooking the best 5 course meals at home, and the other one is like, yeah, I'm busy. Yeah, yeah, man, I've work to do. I've work to do. Not perhaps realizing that this is the stuff they're dealing with, although they're not conscious of it. Over time, what does that kind of interaction and pattern and dynamic do? It's going to undermine the relationship. It's going to undermine the relationship. Yeah. And often somebody's in deep suffering if you're doing it like that. Often somebody's in deep suffering. So you have one person with the fantasy of being rescued, mm, who's like, if I love them more, if I do more for them, they're going to love me more. One of those days, they're going to change. They're going to do better because they'll see I really love them. Does that sound familiar to any of you? You know what I mean? That kind of style is called that's called magical thinking. You know, magical thinking is where, so you know, your kids. We when we were kids, we believed in Santa. That's magical thinking. You know, we believe the tooth fairy actually left us money on the under our pillow. That's magical thinking. So a lot of us, we will see what's in front of us, but we decide, no, you know, it's going to be okay. Yeah. Let me just go to church more. I'll go to church more and I'll pray for them more. And one of those days, the Spirit of the Lord is going to hit them and they're going to start doing better by me. The thing about it is, those of us with that tendency towards love addiction, we actually unconsciously choose people like that. We actually unconsciously choose people like that. And when I say unconsciously, that means you can become aware of it and make a different choice, make a choice that is better for you. That is, if you want to heal from that childhood, it's a wound. It's a wound from childhood. And many people believe that when we come together in relationship, we come together to help the other person, to help ourselves heal from a lot of the wounds we suffered in childhood. Hmm? So it might help us if we chose better. It might help us if we communicated better and more clearly our vulnerabilities. Yeah. The things that make us anxious, the things we're afraid of, you know, why we're afraid the relationship might not work, why we're afraid that if we give more, the other person will take advantage of us. If we pay attention, a lot of that is based in childhood. Okay. So, like I said, what that looks like in relationships, when you see you have two people who come together, and again, our bodies like each other a lot. So you have a lot of physical chemistry. And the person is handsome, the woman is beautiful, or whatever, right? And you think that's all you need. And love is never enough because because I came from a different background and so did you. And nobody gets to adulthood without having experienced a little something. Hmm? So, our job, really, if we're choosing well, is to talk more, communicate more, yeah, to be willing to become intimate enough. Not physically, I'm talking about emotionally intimate enough to where you can talk about the things that you feel anxious about. Yeah, that's actually a good test, a good screen to see, well, is this person going to be a good mate for me long term? But I think a lot of us, we are afraid because we think we've been taught these fantasies about love that I have one soulmate. Yeah, that's the love of my life. Well, what if the love of your life dies? Ask me about it. What you gonna do? You do have the option to stay single for the rest of your life. That's one choice, but there are many other people on the planet. Yeah, yeah. So a lot of us, we are afraid to do the softer side, you know, the deeper work, I think. On the front end of the relationship, when we say we like each other, I like how you look, you like how I look, I like how you smell, I like it when you touch me. That is the easiest part of a relationship. That is really, it's the other stuff, it's the stuff that's underneath that's going to destroy that physical chemistry. You're going to get to where you just don't like the other person. So, I don't want you to touch me if I don't like you. And I'm not going to like you after a while if when I try to get closer to you, you run away. I'm going to give up. I'm going to just give up. Yeah, I'm going to give up. Hmm? And there are some people who actually feel very overwhelmed when people try to get close to them. They feel as if you're clinging to them. No, there is clinging and there is trying to connect. So bringing that kind of stuff from what is unconscious, like think about it like as if like, okay, so this is my front and this is my back is my, I'm unconscious to what's happening in my back. I mean, I don't have eyes in the back of my head, you know? So a lot of things that happen to us in childhood, you grow up, you have different experiences. I mean, you forget. How many of you remember crying for a bottle and your mom not getting it for an hour because she was so busy washing clothes? You don't remember that consciously, but unconsciously, yeah, your body remembers because the body keeps the score. The body remembers. The child's body remembers the pain and the feeling like I wanted, but I didn't get. Yeah. So as adults, we have to try our best to bring those things to our conscious awareness, or else it's just going to work like water underneath anything. If you have water underneath anything running for too long, what's going to happen? Eventually, it could be a rock. It's going to cut a path into the rock. It's going to cause some kind of destruction. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, we think, oh, I stopped loving the person. Oh, they're a horrible person or whatever. But it's not, it's really not always that. It's a lot of us, both people, being willing to revisit, investigate their childhood, to learn themselves enough, and to really take advantage of the relationship. Because seriously, relationships in large measure are to help us recover from those wounds we had as children. Some of us had people who were too much in our business. They were just overpowering us. They were telling us what to do. You cannot do this. They were yelling at us, putting us in punishment. Da, da, da. These people were always honest. Sometimes when we get to relationships, we want the opposite. We don't want people always honest again. But we have to know that to be able to communicate that to the other person, because that other person might have grown up in a situation where they were not getting enough attention. Yeah. And they felt very lonely and they felt very, like nobody paying enough attention to them. So now they were hoping when they came into the relationship, they would have all that. And there you are, where you've had too much of that. So we have to bring that. You have to heal that part now. But you got to use those, like when you jam up and you hit it, you come up against the stuff in the relationship. You have to use that in a healthy way and investigate so that you can, both of us now can grow and we can have healthy love with our self esteem. I mean, if I'm learning and making connections about my childhood because I have a partner who's willing to sit and listen and not judge me and support me, that's how we bloom and grow in relationships, as opposed to being shallow about it. Seriously, it's shallow. Mm, about it and superficial about it and thinking, oh, they're coming after me. They're trying to take all my time. Oh, they don't love me. They're just leaving me alone by myself. That's what I mean. We have to, if we're serious about creating healthy love, you gotta sit and take your time with the other person. Again, healthy love is about giving time and sharing time with another person. Hmm? It's about loyalty to the other person. Yeah. So, what are you going to do about your love situation tonight? Let me see what some of your comments are. My friend, right, says it's a good topic. Thanks for all you do to keep us informed. You are welcome, my friend. I'm not sure what Isa is trying to say. Richardson, Sakafet, Jess says, nice topic, and you are talking to the sinner here. I'm in the healing process. I so get it, Jess, that it's a recovery process, and I know sometimes the relationship cannot take the water underneath, so the relationship falls apart, But that I think is an invitation to examine, well, how did all that come to be? And what was my part in it? Meaning, what was my style? Again, like I would try to stay away from the judging, like the guilt, oh, I'm a horrible person, oh, I da da da, and to just see it as it is. Okay, it didn't work, it fell apart. Let me see what I was doing that maybe, you know, when it matched with the other person's whatever, it did XYZ. And if we're lucky, we have people who are willing to talk with us about where they thought, we could have done it in a different way. I know it takes courage to do that, but the alternative is to not do it, and within 3 years or so, the physical chemistry burns out. For some of us, it's even less than that. Some people in 6 months, they're like, okay, they're gone. Yeah. Some of us can hold on for about 3 years, and then if we're not able to talk about this stuff, the relationship will fall apart and we'll start over. Because. So I think it's valuable to do the work. I really think that's one of the biggest gifts of a romantic relationship. The physical part is going to burn out in about the most it's got is 3 years. Yeah. So if all you're coming to a relationship for is physical, communicate that. And there are many people who will say yes to that. But if you're coming and you really want a deep, meaningful, healthy, mature relationship, be courageous and be willing to look weak, mm, and vulnerable. Yeah, and communicate. Saying the words. I think many of us, again, the childhood piece is so important. If you grew up in a family where it was not okay to show you were angry or to show you disagreed, mm, it's very tough now as an adult to do that in a relationship. But the fact is, you've got to do it in a relationship if you want it to work, or else leave the other person's child alone. Okay? All right. So I'm going to review again some symptoms of love addiction based on what the research is showing, right? Obsessive behavior, obsession, like that's the other person's all you're thinking about, and you cannot separate enough to do your work, to do your tasks. Yeah. If the person doesn't pick up their phone, you think they're cheating right away. Yeah. Compulsive behaviors. There are some people, like I say, who will call somebody 20 times if the person doesn't pick up the phone. Yeah. They get real nasty with their words if you do something they don't like. And at the root of that stuff is anxiety. It's anxiety. It's because they're feeling somehow not safe. Okay? When you see a lot of people physically abusing their mates, it's about a certain level of anxiety and fear underneath. Yeah? That, again, many of us are unconscious to the reason. But if we would take the time, we would find out and we'd be able to build and grow together and overcome those things that when we were kids, I mean, it wasn't our fault that we were raised in a particular way. But as adults, we have the opportunity to grow and to grow together with a person you choose. There's also negative life consequences as a result of loving that particular person. A negative life consequence is somebody beating you up, somebody touching you in any way that is not loving. That's a negative consequence. Somebody laughing at you, that's a negative consequence, isn't it? Because you feel bad. Yeah. Somebody who only wants you for your money, that's a negative consequence. Somebody who only wants you for your body, that's a negative consequence. And many people have felt the pain of that because that body might become pregnant and they tell you sayonara. And it is painful because now you've got to find work and with your swollen feet to care for a baby. Yeah. So love addiction is a form of dysfunctional love. It's our attempt. Again, I'm not trying to be judging because I'm saying we didn't raise ourselves. And our parents were doing the best they could, most of them, you know. So they gave us what they got. And like I said, many of them got put the baby down. Don't listen, do your work, or else the baby will be spoiled. So many of us grew up with this anxiety and we present with strong faces again, but that stuff is unconscious and it's going to get triggered in a romantic relationship. It's going to get triggered. Okay, once you become physically connected, I'm telling you it's going to get triggered. Okay, but the triggering is an opportunity to get in there, become vulnerable. Hopefully you choose a person who can hold your vulnerability and be supportive themselves in a healthy, mature relationship, and the both of you grow. And so the relationship grows. Okay? So these are some of my thoughts tonight. I have a few more ideas, but let me take some of your comments. Irma says, good night. Irma, I hope you're feeling better and getting better and better every day. Hi, Bernice. How are you? Tizier, bonsoir, chérie, chaka fête. Good night. You're listening intently. Bernice also says, continue to drink my water and mind my business because I look very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bernice. Irma says that it's hard to let go. It's really hard to let go. Again, some of that, the hard to let go piece is also about attachment. It's hard for us. Some of us, it's very, I mean, most people, again, we want to be loved and we want to love. So once we start connecting, it's hard to untangle. It hurts to let go. There are also brain processes happening when we're letting go because if you get very connected to a person, you become oxytocin bonded. Oxytocin is the love hormone that attaches us, bonds us to our partners, bonds us to our pets, even our babies. And it's almost as if your brain goes on withdrawal when you don't have your source of oxytocin supply. So it takes a while for a lot of us to get back. Some people say it takes about 2 years for you to detox from oxytocin. So it's very painful, of course, to detach. That's why I think it's valuable to, on the front end, do a better job of screening who you're going to become so close with. Hmm? Omer says relationships are about compromise and respect. That is what it is. I mean, if you want to do a relationship, just expect that, or else leave it alone, or call it something else. You might just have a physical whatever, which is fine. That's do that and let both people know that that's what they're doing. But if you're trying to create a healthy, mature, romantic relationship, understand it's going to be about respect, compromise, communication, yeah, negotiation. It's not just about you anymore. And if you want it to be just about you, you really ought to stay single, and that's okay because you're going to hurt another human being trying to get them to be a 0 to your 10. Thank you, Bernice. Irma is getting there. Hi, oh, Mimos. Hi, Mimi, Takafet. Yo, my girlfriend. My girlfriend from New York is watching. So, yes, y'all. Everybody, for the most part, let me not say everybody. Most of us are looking for love, and we're looking for love beyond the people who are naturally supposed to love us, right? Like our parents and our kids. So we like it. Most of us are looking for some attachment with somebody who is not related to us in a romantic sense. Yes? But everybody's coming from their own background, from their own history. They have their own trauma, their own everything. And so when we come together, sometimes stuff goes awry. Yeah. A lot of the stuff that goes awry is some of this unconscious stuff that happened to us in childhood that, you're not going to keep it in your present front of your brain. Hmm? You have work to do. Yeah. You have school to go to. You have study to study. You're not going to remember this stuff. A lot of us don't have memories really of our baby life, but a lot of that stuff, especially about attachment, and that's what relationships are about. It's about connecting to people and how to connect. Yeah. Again, like I said, some people they connect real loosely with us. Yeah. They want to distance themselves, and some people enmesh themselves. So sometimes you can have a little or too much. Yeah. But too much of anything is good for nothing. Yeah. So it's about trying to find balance for both people. Okay. It's about trying to find balance for both people. Now, Mimos is a licensed clinical social worker. Okay, so she knows this stuff too. So Mimos is saying we cannot love other people before we learn to love ourselves. Okay, and that is very true. Some of us need to do more emotional work before we slam into other people because, again, it can cause so much pain. It can cause so much pain. And you all know it. We know it. There are people who you tell them, I don't want to be with you anymore. And they start stalking you, or they hurt you. They fatally wound you. They wound themselves. They wound your children. They stop giving you access to your children. They take all the money and they go, you know? So this stuff is very, very important. Okay? Oh, look at she's a doctor of social work candidate. Congratulations, Mimos. Congratulations. Yes. So I really, as we come upon Valentine's Day, encourage you to do a little inner self check. Do a little inner self check and see, well, where am I when it comes to this idea of immature love, toxic love, love addiction? Yeah. Where do I need to find a balance? Where do I need to find a balance? Okay. And let me go over how you can find balance. So I was telling you earlier, there actually are treatment groups and opportunities for you if you think, hey, I think that kind of sounds like me, you know? If you think that kind of sounds like you, find a therapist. Find somebody who has been trained to help you work through things like that. You don't have to try to figure it out alone. If you don't have access to a therapist, there are books on, like one that I mentioned called Facing Love Addiction. Amazon is right there, Google is right there. I bet you if you type that into YouTube right now and you start listening, you're going to find somebody who's qualified with a degree behind their name, like DSW. Mm, okay, talking about this stuff. It is very important for those of us with the fantasy tendencies. Mm, Remind yourself that you are an individual and try to stay focused on your interests, like your goals. Because I'm telling you, most the people who fall in love with you, they fall in love with you as you are. So if when you come to them, you suddenly change and you're no longer doing your little exercising and doing your little spa, your little massage and your little nails because you just want to be up under them and focus on them, you're giving them somebody different than who they met. Okay? Meditation is a powerful tool, prayer, reading, yes, learning how to communicate. And I think, again, courage. Courage to be vulnerable because I understand that it's overwhelming for many of us because of the way we were raised and trained. Okay? You're not judging the way you were trained, but you have to admit and see it for what it is and look at where, like look at the soft areas that need to be adjusted. Okay? We're adults now, so the adult must rescue the child. Okay? So, Theo, um, first, let me see what Bernie says. Bernie says, when we strike a balance, it makes the relationship better. No one is greater than the other. And we don't want it to be like that anyway, right? Because both of us see each other as whole, beautiful, fantastic human beings, and our difference we bring to each other to elevate our lives. Yeah, to create this new beautiful thing together, this third entity, our relationship. So I totally agree with you, Bernice. Okay. Theo, you're asking, what are your thoughts about finances in a relationship? Should you have your personal account? My personal thoughts are there should be a joint account for joint expenses and joint business, joint everything, right? There should be a joint account for that. But I believe that I should have a personal account. You can have your personal account if you want. I think that's how I feel most comfortable. That there's a joint account for to manage everything we're doing together. And then you have yours and I have mine. It cuts down on a lot of unnecessary emotional stuff, especially if that unnecessary emotional stuff has not yet been addressed and is still unconscious. So you have people raging at each other. Oh, you gave your sister $200 from my money. Of course, it's their money because if it's joint and we only have a joint account, they're right. Yeah. And it's just, I think it's unnecessary. Let's take care. My view is have a joint account where we take care of our business and you have your account. You can take care of your business and my business. We're separate people. We're separate people. Yeah. Mimi says, thank you. And she says, Valentine is for all of us, whether we have a partner or not. Exactly, right? It's about loving and honoring ourselves. First, it's got to be love myself first. Charity begins at home. I have to learn how to love myself well. That means I have to learn how to be okay alone. Got to learn how to be comfortable, single, alone, where you know what to do with your time, where you know how to bring yourself pleasure and enjoyment in life. You know how to soothe yourself so you're not looking at your partner as your medicine. That's a symptom of love addiction, where you think it's the other person who can make you happy, who can make you feel better, who can take away all your burdens. No, be an not when I say independent, I mean be an adult, a responsible person. Be a responsible person who can take care of yourself, body, mind, spirit. Take care of your needs. Yeah. Can you imagine if I come like this and the other person comes like that together, like, phew, right? Together, it's a beautiful thing. But if I come in and I cannot do it myself, I don't know, I need somebody, it's a setup. It's a setup, you know? It's a setup. And I don't know that you're giving the relationship the best opportunity to flourish, to even survive, if you're not willing to come as a whole human being. Yeah, as a whole human being with your own account already, so that when we come together, we're new. We just met, of course. You know, when we get together, we have a joint account. But I before we, yeah. A lot of people become too enmeshed, you know, in an unhealthy way. Okay. And again, there's some people who stay like this and they don't want to connect, or they do like Sayaka he said. I just went into Creole. What do they call this? You know, the hummingbird. In Dominica, they call that fufu. A hummingbird will come to a mango and it does this, yeah. It does a little peck on it. Oh, this is yeah. Yeah, some of us, that's the way we love. We come in and we're like, you know, they run off and do all sorts of things, become addicted to drugs over there. They become hyper involved with, oh, I have to be in church. A lot of women do this too, and a lot of men. I mean, it's not just men. When I say, you know, I think men typically, not typically, maybe have earned a reputation for being the ones who are more, you know, like the hummingbird, where they'll come in for a landing and then bam, you know, they're working a lot. They got to go to the gym, you know, and their mates are waiting. But women do that too. They're in every choir, they're in every group and organization. So they've got meetings every night, and their poor spouse, their poor husband, or whoever is there home alone, just waiting and hoping to spend some time with them. Yeah. So we have to, you know, just kind of balance it out. Just balance it out. Yeah. If the intention is to create a healthy, mature relationship. And I completely disagree with people like the passport bros and the people who are like, you know, relationships are a mess, relationships don't work. Well, who's working the relationship? It's you and me. So we have to already know certain things. We have to already know that we're going to be dealing with unconscious parts of ourselves when we come into relationship. And so that means I have to know when I start hearing from my partner, you acting a little, that instead of just becoming automatically defensive, perhaps I can get curious and say, tell me more. What I didn't know that about myself. Okay. Oh, for real? You know, are you willing to tell me when it happens? You know what I mean? As opposed to we start fighting automatically because we want to defend ourselves. So, but yeah, y'all, this is my offering to you tonight. Um, if you're in a relationship, there's so many valuable things about being in a healthy relationship. Yeah, it's good for your health. It's good for your health, y'all. It's good for your health. Huh? It's good for your finances. Two is better than one. You got built-in support. You got a therapist at the end of the day to go tell what your supervisor did and who irritated you. You know, there's lots of value to healthy relationships. But we've got to be willing to do the work to do them well. Yeah? Or else they can become life-threatening. So if something can be so powerful, yeah, you have to give it healthy respect. Have to give it healthy respect. Okay? Mimi says, Happy Valentine's to you all. And Bernice says, it's an interesting topic. You're welcome, Mimos. Good to see you, Mama. Theo says, so should restrictions be put on that joint account? And should we be specific about what the account is for? I think so. Yeah, I think that the restriction should be this is for both of us need to agree to be on one accord as to how we spend this money. That's why I think it's valuable to have separate accounts too, because personally, and I know many people, you don't always want to be discussing whether or not you want to give your mom, who your mate might not be fond of necessarily, $500 a month. You know what I mean? So you can cut down on negative interactions with your spouse, except if you all are so on one accord that you can do the joint account only. I don't see um, a reason not to do individual accounts with a joint account. Okay, Theo? That's what I think. So, yeah, y'all, I wish you all a happy weekend. Uh, love is a beautiful thing. If you're Christian, the Bible says, there's faith and there's hope and there is all that kinds of things, but the greatest of them is love. Love is a very high virtue, but sometimes our humanity gets in the way, and the unconscious parts of ourselves, the parts that we kind of buried, not purposely necessarily, but we grow up and we do different things. We got to go through life. We don't always remember the things that happened to us as children, but very often our adult self is being managed by the child in us. And so we have to become aware of that. We have to become aware of that and make choices with that information. And I think also do the work as the adult to see where your unconscious is showing up and getting in your way and throwing you off. Okay? All right. Happy Thursday. Happy Valentine's Day when it comes. Today's the 8th. So it's, I think next Thursday will have already been Valentine's Day. I think it's next Wednesday. I wish you all the best. Happy Carnival, Jean Dominique. Happy Carnival. You know, enjoy the festival. Be safe. All right. And we will talk very soon. I'll see you all next Thursday, Lord willing. Nous que parler en l'autre fois. Peace.